Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I wanted to invite you all to buddy read with me in 2021. So since I have joined Booktube, I have done so many buddy reads, and it is one of the best parts of being part of Booktube. I absolutely love it. I love how buddy reads give you this opportunity to really discuss and think about a book in a way that you wouldn't do on your own. It is absolutely fantastic and I really love it. But what I have noticed is that almost always the buddy reads that I do are because I watch somebody else's video where they talk about a book that they have acquired or a book that they're interested in, and I suggest to them that we buddy read. And I realized that I don't have very many videos where I'm talking about the books that I want to read. I have an enormous TBR, but I don't really share that very often. So I wanted to give an opportunity for anybody who's watching to suggest buddy reading with me. So you do not need to be a booktuber in order to buddy read with me, just somebody who wants to buddy read and discuss. I really enjoy getting to kind of delve into the topics and into the themes that are in a book. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about the way that I do buddy reads and kind of what's involved and like how that will work in terms of planning. And then I'm going to give you an enormous list of 50 books that are on my TBR that I think would be fun to buddy read, and you guys can just let me know if you're interested in buddy reading any of these with me. So first of all, let me talk about the details of how I buddy read and kind of what you need to know about buddy reading with me. Starting with planning in advance. Because I do almost all of my reading from the library, that means that I need to put a hold on a book quite a bit in advance, especially if it's a popular book. The wait might be a couple months long. It also means that I can only kind of approximately guess about when I'm going to start buddy reading a book because I have to wait for that book to come in. And even if I put a hold on it in advance, once I take that pause off of my hold, sometimes there's a couple of days in which I don't know exactly when I'm going to get it. So that is the thing about buddy reading with me. It also means that I have 3 weeks from the point that I get my book until I need to finish reading it. But I really like trying new books from the library, so this is kind of my preferred way to do it. It does mean though that I want to plan quite a few months in advance for anything that I buddy read. Next, the logistics of how the buddy read works. I like to take about 2 weeks to buddy read a book. So for shorter books, maybe a week and a half. For longer books, maybe 2.5 or 3 weeks, but right around 2 weeks is usually pretty good. I really enjoy checking in a couple times a week, generally like midweek and on the weekend, because I think that that gives you a good chance to read a chunk and then have a good discussion. I really prefer to do something around 100 to 200 pages in a book per week because I read a ton of other books at the same time, and so that allows me to kind of switch between which books I'm reading. So that's kind of my preference in terms of pacing and amount of check-ins. In terms of how to check in, I love using Voxer. So I had never heard of Voxer before joining Booktube, but it is very popular on Booktube and I really like it for exactly that reason. So Voxer is just an app that allows you to do like instant messaging, but also allows you to do voice messages as well as text, which is great when you're discussing a book. I definitely have had text only buddy reads where we just kind of write out our thoughts, but I really like using the voice feature just because sometimes I talk a lot. So if you're interested in buddy reading with me, Voxer is definitely my preferred method. Voxer is free. You can get an account really easily. You just sign up. The only thing that I think you should know about Voxer going in is that there is a setting you should change. So in the settings under audio, there is a hold and talk setting, and you should turn that off. Because if it's on, then when you want to record a voice message, you have to hold the button the entire time you're talking, which doesn't sound so bad, but once you've been talking for a couple of minutes, your finger gets really tired. So if you turn that setting off, then all you have to do is tap to start recording and tap to stop. One other thing that's really important to know about buddy reading with me is that I DNF a lot. I DNF 15 to 20% of the books that I pick up, and that does not exclude buddy reads. So often I'm interested in trying a book by an author I've never read before, and if we start buddy reading it and I don't like it, I will DNF it. And that is nothing against the person I'm buddy reading with, it's just that I don't want to read books that I'm not enjoying. It just completely throws off all of my reading, puts me in a slump, month I just don't like it. And this could happen at any point. I DNF at 5%, I DNF at 85%. So just warning you, that is a definite risk of reading with me. Although if we DNF a book, or I DNF a book, I'm totally happy to pick a different book to buddy read in the future. Okay, so let's go ahead now and talk about the books that I want to buddy read in 2021. So what I'm going to do is I have a list of 50 books that I think would be fun to buddy read. And I'm only going to describe them very, very briefly. The goal is not to add anything to anybody's TBR, but just to list enough books that hopefully some of these will be on somebody else's TBR and you'll want to buddy read them. Also, I do not want to buddy read all of these in 2021. I can't manage that many buddy reads. It's too much for me. I'm aiming for maybe about 2 buddy reads per month, and I will pin in the comments down below a list of kind of what my availability is. I'll put blank spaces for each month, and then as I get buddy reads, I'll fill in the books that I'm buddy reading, and so that way you'll know if I have availability in certain months and which books I haven't already agreed to buddy read. And I do really prefer to buddy read just with one other person. I have tried a couple of group buddy reads, and I find that the logistics are just so difficult that I really prefer to just do one-on-one buddy read. So if I've already committed to reading a book with somebody else, just choose something else from my list. So hopefully I have enough books on this list that there will be something you're interested in, and you can just leave me a comment here or on Goodreads telling me your Voxer name, what months you're available, and what books you're interested in, and we can figure out kind of which one to use and which month to do it in. So the 50 books that I have chosen, I have focused mainly on things that I think will be really interesting to discuss, that have a lot of themes or a lot of things to kind of pick apart. So I have a couple of different genres, different sections of what I'm interested in reading, and I will have timestamps down below. So if you're only interested in some of these, you can just jump to those sections. But these are literary fiction, historical fiction, modern classics, literary short stories, and SFF short stories. So first, let me tell you about the literary fiction that I have on my list, starting with Here Comes the Sun by Nicole Dennis-Brown, which is about a woman in Jamaica who has to do some pretty shady things in order to support her younger sister and is dealing with the influence of a lot of external people coming to build tourist spots in Jamaica. Bestiary by K-Ming Chang. This is a multi-generational, fabulous story about Taiwanese American women, queerness, generational issues. It's supposed to be very, very strange, but sounds intriguing. A Concise Chinese-English Dictionary for Lovers by Xiaolu. This is about a Chinese woman who moves to London to study English, ends up falling in love, but has to deal with a lot of communication issues. Signs Preceding the End of the World by Yuri Herrera, translated from Spanish by Lisa Dillman. This is about a woman who crosses the US-Mexican border. Miracle Creek by Angie Kim, which is about a hyperbaric chamber that explodes and kills people and the mystery of trying to discover what caused that. Goodbye Vitamin by Rachel Khong, which is a family drama about a woman whose father develops dementia. The Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, which is about an Indian American family and some of the issues of immigration. There by Tommy Orange, which is about many different people who are coming together for a big urban Oakland powwow. Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid, which is about a Black woman who babysits a little white girl and some of the issues of pervasive racism and privilege. A Woman is No Man by Etaf Rum, which is about a Palestinian American girl who's being forced into marriage just like her mother was before her. No One Can Pronounce My Name by Rakesh Satyal, which is about 2 middle-aged Indian American immigrants, one of whom is a man who dresses up as his dead sister to help his mother deal with her grief, and the other is a woman who is dealing with her husband's potential infidelity by writing romance novels. Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kawai Strong Washburn, which is about a Hawaiian family and the siblings in it, one of whom was saved by sharks as a child. Memorial by Brian Washington, which is about a Black queer man who gets stuck living with his boyfriend's mother, who is visiting from Japan when his boyfriend unexpectedly has to leave the country. Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu, which is a satirical look at race and assimilation with a man who has to play lots of generic Asian stereotype roles on TV. Now moving on to historical fiction, starting with The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, which is about two twin sisters who are very light-skinned but Black, one of whom who lives her life as a white woman and the other who lives her life as a Black woman. Your House Will Pay by Steph Cha, which follows both a Black and a Korean American family during the race riots in LA in the 1990s. Dominicana by Angie Cruz, which is set in the 1960s and follows a 15-year-old girl who marries a man twice her age so that she can move to New York but ends up in a very unhappy marriage. Song of a Captive Bird by Jasmine Darznik, which is a fictionalized account of a famous feminist Iranian poet from the 1950s. The Gods of Tango by Carolina de Robertis, which follows an Italian immigrant to Argentina in 1913 who dresses as a man in order to play violin in a tango group. The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, which is set in the 1980s and follows a 13-year-old Ojibwe boy in North Dakota who tries to figure out who attacked his mother. Homegoing by Ya Jesse, which is a multi-generational saga over 300 years that starts with two half-sisters in Ghana, one of whom marries a British colonizer and the other gets sold into slavery. Silver Sparrow by Tayari Jones, set in the 1980s about two half-sisters, one of whom who knows that their father is a bigamist, the other who doesn't. Pachinko by Minjin Lee, which is a multi-generational saga about a Korean family living in Japan in the 20th century. A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mystery, which is set in the 1970s and follows a group of very different people who are thrown together when a state of emergency breaks out. Under the Odala Trees by Chinelo Okparanta, which is a coming-of-age story of a queer girl in the 1960s during the Nigerian Civil War. The Architect's Apprentice by Alif Shafak, which is about a young boy who becomes the apprentice to an architect in the 16th century in the Ottoman Empire. Cracking India by Bapsi Sidhwa, which is about the 1947 partition of India and Pakistan, told from the perspective of a young girl. Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko, which is about a man who was captured by the Japanese during World War II, who returns to the Laguna Pueblo Reservation and tries to find solace in his heritage and tradition. The Book of Salt by Monique Truong, which is set in the 1930s and follows a queer Vietnamese immigrant to Paris who becomes the chef to Gertrude Stein. Indian Horse by Richard Wagamis, which follows a young Ojibwe boy in the 1960s who is trying to survive being at a residential school. Now moving on to the modern classics, beginning with Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe, which is about the impact of colonialism on a small Nigerian village. If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin, which is about a young couple who are really impacted when the man is accused of rape and arrested. Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, which is a dark, surreal story about a young Black man dealing with racism. East Goes West by Young-Hil Kang, which is about a Korean man in the 1930s who immigrates to New York City to study literature. Passing by Nella Larson, which is set in 1929 and is about two light-skinned Black women, one who passes as white and one who is very much a part of the Black Harlem community. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, which is about a young girl's internalized racism. Now moving on to the literary short stories, starting with Friday Black by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. This is a collection of dark short stories that focus on race and capitalism. Crick Crack by Edwidge Danticat, which is a collection of short stories focusing on the strength of Haitian women. The Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans, which is a collection of stories about racism and about how history haunts us. Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, which is a set of interwoven stories of Black British women. The Beadworkers by Beth Piatote, which is a collection of stories about Northwest Indigenous communities and families. How to Pronounce Knife by Suvankam Thamavongsa, which are stories about Laotian immigrants and families. Heads of the Colored People by Nafisa Thompson Spires, which are dark, humorous stories about middle class and Black identity. And lastly, moving on to the SFF short stories, starting with A Phoenix First Must Burn by Patrice Caldwell, which is a collection of SFF short stories about Black girls. Assimilated Cuban's Guide to Quantum Santeria by Carlos Hernandez, which is Latinx SFF stories with humor. A People's Future of the United States, edited by Victor Laval and John Joseph Adams, which is a collection of short stories imagining a future where the true ideals of the United States are actually embraced. Broken Stars, edited by Ken Liu, which is a collection of translated modern Chinese SFF. Salsa Nocturna by Daniel Jose Older, which are urban fantasy short stories set in New York City. Ambiguity Machines by Vandana Singh, which are SFF stories written by a physicist. Dark Matter, edited by Cherie R. Thomas, which is a collection of 20th century SFF short stories by Black authors. Okay, so I hope that some of these books are on your TBR as well. Go ahead and check the pinned comment that I will leave below that kind of shows what my availability is. And let me know either in a comment here or by messaging me on Goodreads, again, what your Voxer name is, what months you're interested in reading with me, what books you're interested in reading, and even if you don't want to buddy read with me, but you just want to leave me a comment below if you've read any of these books, if you think any of them are ones that I definitely should get to, anything at all, go ahead, leave me a comment down below.